Welcome to the Dark Mind Podcast. All right, friends and familiars. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dark Mind Podcast, where we explore the boundless realm of dark literature and film. On today's show, I have a writer, teacher, and counselor who utilizes psychology to help others as well as craft compelling narratives. He's joining me today to discuss his new novel entitled Pierce the Veil. So without further ado, join me as we delve into the dark insight of David Sims. All right, friends and familiars, we are live on YouTube, Twitch, and X with David Sims talking about his recent novel, Pierce the Veil. David, welcome to the show.
Well, welcome to you, and thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me on this third day of September 2024. I really enjoyed your first book, Fear the Reaper, which was a historical psychological thriller centered around the memory hold American eugenics movement. So I was very interested to see what your next book would be about, especially after you told me that this one was going to, quote, really piss some people off. What I found was an intense psychological thriller that delivered a scathing attack on most people's preconceived notions of the afterlife and kept me guessing about what would happen next all the way till the end. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I want to thank you for sending me a copy and coming on the show to discuss it.
Well, thank you. It was a long time coming, but it's a therapeutic book for me, and so I wasn't intending to piss people off, but I figured I usually have that effect on people anyway. So,
what better catharsis than just getting a rise out of somebody? Why not?
yeah. I mean, exactly. Let's just have fun with it. Mm-hmm. And if they take it too seriously, screw them.
Exactly. Words to live by, folks. Well, so the book is about a man named Derek Boone, known to his friends as Boone, who is leaving a bar one night after playing a music gig with his lead singer and best friend, Shane. The weather is extremely icy, and as they approach a bridge, they are struck by a salt truck, which sends them and their vehicle plummeting into an icy river. Boone wakes up in a hospital room and learns that Shane had died, and Boone himself was clinically dead for approximately, I think, 23 hours. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. A duration made possible only because he was held in a state of suspended animation in the icy river, much like what wealthy individuals attempt to achieve by having themselves cryogenically frozen after death. And I did a little research on this. I don't know if my constant use of cryogenic is appropriate. I think it's actually cryonic when you're talking in the context of having yourself frozen. So I'm going to try not to say cryogenic because I think that's more of a sports medicine therapy treatment. But Boone is told that he holds the distinction of being the person who was clinically dead the longest and successfully revived. He soon discovers that both good and bad people are obsessed with finding out whether he got a glimpse of the other side of death, and that is where the story begins. So maybe not all, but definitely most people would like to know what's on the other side, I would assume. So what do you think is the main reason most people want to know, and why?
Well, one of the things that I learned from teaching psychology is, phobias. I love finding what people are afraid of, the irrational and rational fears. And I think one of the top five is the fear of the unknown. So again, people always want to know what they don't know or can't know. So that's the oldest question in the book. What's on the other side? What happens afterwards? So I mean, to know that once you get up there in a certain age range, you're thinking, oh crap, this is inevitable. So it's one of those things that it just happened, hit me once, and I actually had a close call when I was 10. So it's something that's always stuck with me and kind of goes goes with memories. But it's something that kind of hung with me when I was planning out this book.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of people get, or at least me, I've noticed being in my 40s, I didn't used to really think what happens after you
Mhm.
die. And I'd like to think that, well, after you've lived a life that gets you into middle age, maybe you just become more spiritual. But I also
Mhm.
think there's some self preservation involved. You're like, oh
Mhm.
shit, I'm not getting any younger. I might actually have to deal with this whole death thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, so the story begins in medias res with Boone holed up in his apartment, surrounded by dark figures who are hell bent on what he believes to be his own destruction. And using this technique gives the reader an abrupt, unfiltered view of just how dramatic and dark Boone's transformation had been. What were you attempting to convey to the reader from the moment the story starts when we see the stark contrast between Boone's happy go lucky personality and what he ultimately becomes? And for some reason, as I was reading that beginning scene, Fight Club just shot into my head. Not quite the same thing, but
Yeah.
I don't know, that whole in medias res slap in the face
Mhm.
the minute the story begins.
Yeah, I just like to start with a bang, no matter what I'm doing, because again, people's attention spans seem to be, getting shorter, including mine. So, I mean, the days of the slow build is, it's a rarity now. So, I figure a thriller like this that might take some build up afterwards, just to kind of, I just had this whole vision of the book. I was going to start and end with that scene, and just have it a little bit different as it ended. And it just had this cool bookended type vision in my head. So, and what happened between the two chapters would be the story. So that just came to me out of nowhere. And then I figured once I started working on it, it's like, let's see it this way. As his vision of kind of like, of going through the first chapter, would he live? Would he not live? And how he would move out of that, especially with the end of the first chapter. What could be the resolution for that, and where would you go from knowing what happened in the first chapter? How would the rest of the book flow? And just kind of really throw people into the middle of it, and just kind of ratchet up some anxiety there, just to see. Um, if I can get some people thinking, wow, like if you're putting death in the first chapter, where could we go next, and why? And especially with his mindset there, where especially since he's looking like he's okay with what he's doing there with the gun and everything else,
Mhm.
and then
I
see,
think we can say unaliving.
yeah, yeah, on a lot of, yeah, it's kind of crazy there, but again, it's just to be he's on the fence there. He wants to pull the trigger and he doesn't want to at the same time. At the same time, he just wants to take care of matters himself instead of leaving it in the hands of somebody else. Just kind of have some kind of control over his own mortality, and just kind of that was kind of the crux of my question going into this: like, how much control do we have over our own lives and our own deaths? So just to really kind of just throw a wrench into the whole thing about how we live, how we die, and everything else, and just kind of put it like a kind of tongue to the battery type of situation. Let's just kind of spark the story into high drive right away.
And you made what I assume was a joke about yourself having a shorter attention span. Is that
Yes.
just, do you feel like you're being influenced by media, or are you just cracking a joke about as I get older?
Um, no, it's funny. I actually talked to David Morrell, who created the Rambo character years ago when I was plotting out Fear the Reaper, and he said, "You know what?" He said, "Whatever you're doing, just make sure it opens with something really strong. It doesn't need to be bombastic. It has to be something that's really going to like capture the reader's attention." He's because he reminded me like thousands upon thousands, now millions upon millions of books are coming out every week. He said, find something that's going to make your book stand out, And again, a lot of times a quick action scene that really kind of sets the tone for the novel could be the difference between life or death for readers. So I've taken it to heart, and now with everything I write, I usually come up with a scene that has a similar effect. To even with the middle grade and young adult books I write, same thing. I really want to just have that proverbial slap in the face or your psyche, just to just to keep things going. But David Morrell really had a strong impact on me, and thankfully, he was a good mentor. Well, he still is. I just yes, yeah, he's still
Nice.
around. Yeah,
Don't you put that on him.
no. He's cool. I just haven't seen him in a few years. So yeah.
Gotcha. Well, when Boone gets into the accident, he is literally in a very large, less elegant version of a cryonic chamber that the rich and famous pay ridiculous amounts of money for, as I mentioned previously. What kind of research did you do, if any, into cryonics, or the way that I know with when people go into cardiac arrest, they do something called therapeutic hypothermia, where I think when they've got the heartbeat back, they lower the body's temperature until they get them back to like full on consciousness. They slowly get them out of it. I don't really understand that one completely, but
Okay. Well, here's where we get. I mean, not that we weren't getting weird before, but here's where we get really weird into the research. So first of all, I did research. The current medical technology. Is this actually possible? And they have done it with people up to 7, 8, 9 hours, as long as the brain is not injured, as long as the brain is not deprived of oxygen as it's dying, what per se, things are possible. So if you're kind of flash frozen, um, it just took a little bit of a leap there, but not much of one, saying that this is possible. So again, you're just saying that intentionally induced hypothermia, that can actually happen. So flip on the other side, I had the yeah, that's pretty much it. Life extension within reach. Yeah, it was definitely within reach for him.
I don't know if this is exactly what you're talking about.
Oh yeah.
This is more of get frozen and hopefully one day we figure out how to get you back.
Hello, Walt Disney. Yeah, it was really interesting. However, I don't know if you've ever heard, but the University of Virginia has their own parapsychology department, and they call it Division of Perceptual Studies. Where to guess what they study? They study near-death experiences. They study psi experiences, out-of-body experiences, everything else, and they try to qualify it. And none of these people are paranormal investigators. There are surgeons, there are neurologists, neurosurgeons, all sorts of different people, and it's part of University of Virginia's medical school. So they're not screwing around with this stuff. They're not saying, "Hey, we're like Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray here." We're talking serious things. So I studied this for a long time, and it wasn't until 3 weeks ago that I actually got to visit there, because they want to keep all the kooks out of the mix there. So yep, there you go. So
nice.
yeah, I got to hang with 3 of those people in that picture there.
Which ones?
The one on the left,
This guy?
yep, and the guy in the middle with the beard and glasses, and the next guy over. So
guy.
yeah, all 3 of them. So we all got to hang out, and I'm going back there in a few weeks to talk more about it. So they showed me some amazing things about. They have filing cabinets for about 20 feet wide from stories around the world of near-death experiences everywhere, and fascinating stuff. And they don't judge the stuff; they just read through the files. They analyze and say, okay, basically who's full of crap and who's not. So hearing their stories about this stuff and knowing that it's officially part of the medical school for this prestigious university here is amazing to me. But to see it live was we got in a 5-person tour. They only open up for certain professionals per year, but a student of mine, her godfather actually was working for them. So she said, "Hey, would you like to go in?" I was like, "Absolutely." So we got to pick their brains for a couple hours and go through this and find out. And I asked them, I said, "Is what happened in my novel plausible?" They said, "Absolutely." They said, it's not only plausible, it's probable." So that kind of, you want to talk about have your mind blown. I said, wait a minute, this is supposed to be fiction again, but with a lot of truth. They said, no, this has happened. Again, I didn't ask about the time frame about how long you can actually be clinically dead. But again, they said yes, if you can be frozen quick enough, whereas like there's not any damage or decay to your brain, then yes, this can happen. Now the recovery time is up for debate, but again, if you do it properly, they said this is extremely possible, which both excited me and scared the hell out of me. So
What is their position on cryonics? Do they think that's like excessive? Like, do they think that's a little much? You shouldn't be doing that, or do they think, oh yeah, maybe we'll?
yeah, here's the thing that was really fascinating to me. They don't want to purposely put anybody under and like to kill them or to say, hey, you're dying, let's freeze you. It's just because the science isn't quite proven yet. Because they haven't been saying, hey, Walt Disney or some other people, and say let's freeze you and bring you back in 5 years. They can't do that yet, and they don't want to try it. They don't want to mess with somebody yet, just because the technology is not there in that realm. So, however, bringing back people from where they go through electronic stimulation, basically shocking you back to life, which is real. But again, just getting more scientific and more fine tuning with that. They said, let's do this. So they don't want to kill anybody, but they do want to bring people back. And that's their stance. They said, yeah, we don't want to go all flatliners here, but
That was a great movie.
oh my God, yes, it's funny. I didn't even think about that when I was writing it. As soon as it came out, three people came up to me and said, "Yeah, that's just like Flatliners." I said, "Oh my God, you're right."
Yeah,
But I didn't think about it when I was writing it. It must have been all subliminal. So
yeah, yeah. I remember that film.
yeah, and they're remaking it. Hopefully, don't butcher that one too.
Are they really?
Unfortunately,
Oh,
yes.
God. I mean, I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility that it'll be good, but I remember that being a solid movie. That was what, Kiefer Sutherland,
Yep, Kevin Bacon.
Julia Roberts, Kevin Bacon. I can't ever
Yes,
remember his name.
yeah, it's eluding me too.
Character actor. Yeah. Great movie. Listeners at home, check that out.
Please do.
Well, circling back to the book, Boone soon discovers that once he gets out of the hospital after being in a coma for 4 months and he gets back on his feet, everyone wants to know if he caught a glimpse of the other side due to how long he was clinically dead. Even his own doctor wanted to know. But no one was more eager than the members of a shadowy group called the Brotherhood. And they had sent an operative known only as the Priest to find him. And I personally love lone operatives, like hitmen, especially. Like, I guess Jason Bourne was technically a hitman that had amnesia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the Jackal from Day of the Jackal, the original one with Cassavetes, and the remake with Bruce Willis is probably my favorite Bruce Willis movie.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about your process for creating this character.
Okay, well, I was really inspired by those movies as well. I love those movies, and I'm a fan of any type of spy movie or anything with a great hitman. And I'm thinking also, I was also inspired by F. Paul Wilson's Repairman Jack series, thinking, what if he was on the dark side of things? And the whole point of this guy saying, okay, well, it's from a religious organization, so what was his main goal? I mean, what is his main goal? What is he trying to do, and why is he tied to a religious group? And what could be his quest to find? And are there others, or is it him, or who else is involved in it? And I really want to make him not so much likable, but relatable. Just his main goal is not so much for the Brotherhood, but for himself. He wants to know what's on the other side. So he just really wants to learn. And how he goes about it is pretty sick and disturbing. But again, there are tons of people out there who will do just about anything to find a glimpse of what's on the other side. So I figured, how far would people go? So to have an operative like this is not really out of the realm of possibilities, especially when I did my research into the Vatican and seeing what they do, having their own secret service and everything else. It's really not straying into fiction very far.
Yeah, it's funny that the Vatican City is basically a sovereign nation, technically.
True. Yeah. And the
Yeah.
fact that when I researched it, they do have a secret service. They do have agents. They do have their. So I mean, I'm not saying they're going around and kill people, but I mean, they do investigate matters like this. And researched so many times. I mean, I went on a virtual tours of the Vatican. I went through other things to look through. And again, people like the priest actually do exist, and they're sent out all over to investigate different cases like this or other things that go on, anything that's either going to prove something or to protect any type of secrets that go on, either to anything that's going to damage the church's reputation or to enhance it. So I always knew that, but to read about it was utterly fascinating.
So do they have a term for those people? Like,
They don't. I mean, they do have a technical term, which is eluding me right now, but they do have a term. Basically, they still call them part of the clergy. But again, everybody who reads about it just calls them basically the church's secret service. That I cannot. There is a term, but it's fallen right out of my head right now. But yeah, there is a term for it. But however, their term is for the sanitized version, for people who just kind of go out and investigate. Kind of like,
yeah,
I don't know if you've seen the show Evil.
no.
Oh my gosh, watch
I
that.
don't watch any TV anymore.
Okay, all right. My God, this is one of the few
My
things that
wife has probably seen it.
yeah. They actually investigate things for the Catholic Church there, but it's more tongue in cheek. It's kind of like if you don't take yourself too seriously. But again, even they talk about these agents and everything else, and that was the heart of their matter, which I started writing before Evil came out. So, but again, it's a real thing. And again, you'd be surprised at how much you can actually read about through their own documentation, through their own publications. That they don't hide much of it. They say what are you going to do? So it's out there for. Hey, it's the richest sovereign nation in the world. So what are you going to do to them? So, but again, they don't hide much. At least in that area.
Yeah, it's amazing. Most in situations like that, whether it be religious organizations or political organizations, most of them don't hide anything. They just kind of obfuscate it.
Yeah,
They hide it in plain sight.
pretty much, yeah, and that's
Yeah.
what hit the ending of the book too. Like, I mean, everything that came out at the end. I mean, again, I learned that from a virtual tour I took at the Vatican and underneath it, and I was dumbfounded when I first went on the virtual tour. I said, "How is this possible? And how are they actually doing something?" And then I read how much they were charging per tour. It's like, now I get it. So it's a cash grab. So yeah, so that makes sense.
Gotcha. Well, prior to all of this happening, Boone was engaged to be married to a woman named Megan, but there had been a fallout regarding the religious aspects of the wedding, and it was possible that the wedding wasn't going to even happen. Megan was very religious, and this is exemplified repeatedly throughout the story. What was the reason for her hyper religiosity, if that's an actual term?
Well, I figured it'd be a perfect foil for him because he's on not so much a atheist, but more of an agnostic. He's kind of on the fence between a whole lot of things, and not so much against religion, but against the fervor that comes across some of the more, again, like you said, hyper religious people. So pretty much didn't want to be have all this shoved down his throat. So for her having her thing, I grew up with tons of people back in New Jersey who were exceedingly religious, which is fine. I'm not against religious people, but again, I'm against people shoving it down my throat. 12 years of Catholic school will do that to you. I still have scars on my body. Again, being left-handed is not fun in a Catholic school. But so I just want to go through some of the people, and again, not so much for Catholic religion, but for any religion where people go too far into it and just kind to want to like shoehorn their beliefs into everybody else's lives and things like that. So, and how religion can be good, but also can actually destroy lives too. And that's what I want to show with him. So, I mean, the whole relationship, would it survive her being going too far into the religion and trying to impose her beliefs on him, or would it survive? Which would be stronger, the relationship or the religion? And I figured it would be fascinating. And I've known people like that. I've dated people like that who were just basically they said, here, if you don't believe the same thing I do, we're done. And it was baffling to me. And I mean, I once had a relationship ended by somebody's mother because they said, you don't fit. And she actually used those words for me. It's like, if you're, so basically we had this whole long relationship cut off because of a organized religion thing. So I figured, why not bring that into the story and to run with it?
Yeah. And let me just take a second to give you kudos for being perfectly framed. You've got Poe on your right. You've got some sort of amazing skull on your left. And what's above your head?
That is a painting by Jill Bauman, who is an amazing artist. I got at a conference called Nikon years ago. So, my house is littered with different art, and that is part of hers. So I figured this is in the heart of my library. So I figured, honestly, I'm just trying to get away from some of the clutter around here because I'm redoing my library. So I figured, let's sit in front of the fireplace. I said, whoa, I have Poe right on one side and skulls on the other, and there's even an extra skull right here if I ever need to go all Hamlet. But yeah, yeah. But then again, it's really hard for me to get away from anything horror related or Halloween related in my house. Everywhere you turn, there's something. So.
Yeah, I had Johnny Compton on the show, and he had some sort of a painting of some sort of spooky face in the background, and he was using like a real high def camera that had autofocus. And so every once in a while, the camera would just like blur him and zoom in on that. And it was almost like the thing was just creeping up on him. He eventually got to the point where he would like wave his hand in front of it so it focus back on him. But like every once in a while, he would just go blur, and you'd see this thing like.
That's awesome.
It was hilarious. He was like, "Do you want me to fix it?" I was like, "No, go with it. This is amazing."
That's beautiful. Yeah, I still have to read his new one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's amazing. I love stuff like that.
Well, circling back to the book, much to Megan and basically everyone's chagrin, Boone doesn't really have anything to say about the experience because he doesn't remember anything. And Megan refuses to believe that, or at least she's convinced that the vision will eventually come to him. The vision, of course, of heaven with dead relatives waiting for him. I'm assuming the long tunnel of light. So Megan also took it upon herself to get Boone involved in making an appearance on a popular daytime talk show with other people who had had near-death experiences. So was her obsession with Boone remembering a vision of the afterlife about a fear of death, or was it about making money? And can you kind of expand on that?
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I went into that in the book, sort of on purpose. Like some things I like to leave kind of nebulous there. And I think that she's hell bent, no pun intended, on spurring him to remember. And she's hoping that anything that he does will kind of trigger him to remember. Because again, that retrograde amnesia is a real thing, especially in coma patients and things like that, where you can lose, either that spot memory of what happens of that death or something else afterwards, or just when you're just knocked out. And it's a real thing. So, and then all the signs behind it saying, you know what, to give you something to help you remember, whether it's a show or a voice or an experience or something else. So I think when she hears about this, she just wants to go full throttle. It's like, again, is it a selfish reason? Absolutely. But I do think that a good part of her also wants to help him. But is she blinded by her own religion, or is she blinded by her relationship with him? That's up in the air. And I want to leave that in the reader's mind. That's saying, okay, well, what is the truth here? But the short answer is I definitely think that she is acting more on the selfish side because she's been hearing all this stuff and believing all this stuff blindly for her whole life. And now she has a chance to find out for real. And I think her fear aside, I don't think she's thinking about that at all. She's thinking, okay, here's a quick fix answer to my own faith and my own doubts, and let's put them on the show, and the consequences be damned. A little foreshadowing. Yeah. Yeah.
Hell-bent, consequences be damned. So many infernal references here, sir.
Hey, it's beginning of school year. I'm dealing with a lot of hell, so I'm good.
Well, even one of Boone's students has a desperate need. Her mother passed away recently, and she corners him in a very, I remember it being a very awkward description because
Mhm.
I think he was worried about people thinking he was having a
Yeah,
relationship with his student or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So it seems like self preservation seems to bring out the worst in people. And Boone was kind of getting a taste of what it was like to be a celebrity, just not the rock star variety
Yeah.
that he would have preferred. So,
Mhm.
what were you attempting to convey to the audience with these unfortunate consequences of what on the surface seemed like a good thing?
Well, just again, just that people want. Oh boy, it's like you that whole proverbial 15 minutes of fame thing. It's like, do you want it, or are you afraid of it? And what would happen when you actually get it? Is it going to make your life better or worse? And some of these things I have experienced as a teacher myself, not with the near death experiences, but I have kids come into my room all the time asking me for help for things, consequences and tragedies of their own. I've had kids' parents pass away, siblings, uh, worse things go on, and again, it's one of those fine razor's edges. Do you want you walk? I was like, do you want help? And then how much other things can go wrong? Whether it's that student, again, which is I also happy. I mean, crazy because I had a student come in my class today. Like we were talking about all these psychological issues, and I'm thinking, what do you do? And again, it's always weird to tackle. Do you want to put yourself in this position, or do you not? And I think, but for me, it's always like, I want to help so much that that's my main focus, and I'll help out anybody any given time. But now between him and his friends and the principal and everybody else involved in it, I think part of him is just kind of figure out, like, he just wants to talk to everybody just so he can figure out what happened to himself. And then maybe these people have an insight, maybe they can help trigger him. Again, don't think he wants the spotlight at all. He just wants to find out what happened and what does it mean to him? How is it going to matter to him and his life and his mortality? So again, it's just all kind of triggering in various ways. It obviously it triggers everybody else's experiences from their own loved ones, both alive and dead, and friends and neighbors and everything else. Everybody wants their answer. Everybody wants their quick fix. But for him, it's pretty much he doesn't want anything other than just to find some kind of peace. And if that peace comes with resolution of what happened or not, he just wants to kind of get back to being himself, even though he knows that he'll never be back to his old life.
Yeah, it seemed like he had a pretty cool existence. I mean, he was
Mhm.
teaching school, he was uh, playing in a rock band on the side.
Mhm.
Yeah. You talk about 15 minutes of fame. I hesitate
Yeah.
to bring it up, but are you familiar with the Hawk Chu girl?
It's funny you mention that because I'm also a fantasy football addict, and
Uh-huh.
so one of my teams I actually named after a little riff on that whole experience. So it's like, yeah, I won't say what it is, but it's not an inappropriate comment, but it's funny that yes. So yeah, if somebody like her can actually milk this into millions of dollars, hell, anybody can. So
Yeah. It kind of freaks me out about the internet because I mean, like that girl woke up one morning and was a star. and,
yes,
and may or may not even remember it. I think she was out drinking. She might have
oh,
tied one on pretty hard, you know?
I think she was hammered. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
So,
God, that's
you
crazy.
waking up a millionaire, and all of a sudden, and her star is still sparkling before it fades. So hey, it's like, yeah, go out. It's like it doesn't. When I tell students not to go out drinking, and then they can point to that, it's like, well, yeah, I don't have an answer for that one. So
Yeah. I thought about making a drop of her saying that and using it on the radio live stream where I have people call in. But I was like, you know what? I bet you that thing is so copyrighted. If I dropped it one time, it would shut the
mm,
stream down.
you're probably right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, she probably has to copyright it. I know she has it on T-shirts and hats
Yeah.
and everything, being called up on stage and singing things. Yeah. So yeah, but again, that's just it. 15 minutes of fame. I mean, like anybody could be famous. Like with it's just for the stupidest shit out there. I mean, it's like we're living in idiocracy, but the reality. So
Yeah. Well, circling back to the book, The next major characters in the story are a couple named Rhonda and Stu Goodwin. Now, they were a married couple. Did I get that
Yes,
right?
they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's unclear whether or not they're part of the Brotherhood, but they live in a heavily fortified compound of cabins, with theirs, of course, being the most opulent. So their sordid deeds include burning people alive who have had near death experiences and claim to have seen an evidence of an afterlife. And when I mean burning people alive, I don't necessarily mean, like burning them to death, but holding their feet to the fire in a literal sense. Do these characters in any way represent what some refer to as evangelical atheists? Because you were talking earlier about, religious people are great as long as they're not fundamentalist, I think the words you use were like shove it down your throat type of
Mhm.
things. But I found some people that are atheists that are the exact same way. Like
Mhm.
I'm in recovery. I've been sober for like what is it, 12 years now,
Mhm.
and I used to go to or I tried going to atheist AA meetings because I
Yeah.
got sick of all the spiritual
Mhm.
claptrap that people talked about in normal meetings. But they talk more about what their non-belief in God.
Mhm.
I heard more about that in those
Yeah.
meetings than I did the regular ones.
Yeah.
So, did they represent what I would refer to as evangelical atheists? And could you explain what kind of makes them tick?
To be totally honest, I mean, you're using that term was the first time I heard of that. However, I think it's pretty damn close to it. Because again, I want to swing the pendulum the other way. Again, we have the Brotherhood on one side, which is like going full throttle religion. I want to have somebody on the other side. But one of my favorite things to study is cults. Cults are fascinating to study, and we have one in the town where I teach. It's weird. They don't do anything harmful to people. Well, maybe that I've heard of it, but
Not
but
that you
again,
know of.
not that I know of. But I would like to, and they send out invites all the time, and I was like, hey, I would love to do it just for a day and see what they're about. Um, but again, I've been fascinated by this stuff and just reading about what happens, and I'm thinking, how could they be different? How could they be weird? And I'm thinking, well, let's just try this on for size. And their whole thing is, uh, yeah, yep.
You can't say cult without thinking about this guy.
And that's exactly what I think about when I think about cults. But so on the flip side of that, I figure, what about this cult of these leaders actually were pretty rational, if they, at least on the surface? I mean, everybody thinks they're sane. Nobody thinks they're crazy. Again, but what if this couple actually seemed to be kind of rational and kind of on a normals can be, at least on the at the surface, and then we just want to figure out their own truth too, and then to have that kind of split antagonist. Because again, we all know things about the Catholic Church, and any church could be crazy. But again, let me hit on the other side and say, let's swing the other pendulum to the pendulum's other side there and say, which is crazier, the cult or that? And it's funny, I got a lot of responses from my students and from other people. They said, wow, can they be equal? And I was like, well, yeah, kind of. So just to think about that, yeah, they are on that side of, they are evangelical in some aspects, and they are atheists in some aspects as well. But again, I didn't want to fully label them. I wanted to just kind of leave it up to the readers to kind of draw that conclusion as well, and kind of really think, what is their end game? What are they really trying to do here? But again, just to show them that they can be as fanatical as that crazy Heaven's Gate guy, or David Koresh, or anything else. And like, what if they try to keep one foot in society and reality, and the other one in like a crazy step off of the cliff of sanity on the other side, and just to go with it. And again, I think you nailed it. Even though I wasn't thinking of that term, I think you pretty much nailed it about the atheist and evangelical side of it. Because again, we've seen plenty of that stuff in society in recent years, where, like, hey, we say we're religious, we say we're on the right side of things. However, we're gonna kick your ass, and we're gonna kill you if you don't believe in us. So I really want to just kind of um, split the difference there between the two groups and gonna go to polar opposites and have each opposite just as nutty as the other one.
Yeah. Well, when it came around to the talk show interview, it didn't exactly go as planned. And for some reason, just like I had Fight Club shoot into my head
Mhm.
when, no pun intended, in reading the opening scene,
Mhm.
whenever I was reading this scene, it made me think of that show Crossing Over with John Edward,
Oh
where he
God,
does
yeah.
all the cold reading stuff.
Mhm.
So there seems to be a cottage industry of this kind of nonsense. And, I'm not close minded. I'm
Mhm.
open to damn near anything. But
Mhm.
I think that most rational people can agree that there's a certain level that's just confidence tricks. So do you think people should be protected from that? Or do they just have to learn their lesson the hard way? And what about the people that seem to want to be lied to?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, people love being coddled. They want to be comforted. They want to have somebody tell them it's all going to be okay. And that's never going to happen. So so again, these talk shows. I mean, we go back to Jerry Springer and to oh God, all the other ones that are out there. I mean, Dr. Phil and everything else. I mean, they go on there. They're not expecting the truth to come out. They're just expecting either A, to have their 15 minutes of fame, B, to you'd be lied to, but having them be soothed at the same time, and C, just again, they want to be around other people who might share their delusions. Even some of these people, I do believe that. I mean, they know it's not true. However, I mean, but they want to hold on to it, no matter how slim that sliver of truth may be. And they just want, again, so being lied to, sure. But again, some of these people, again, from watching these talk shows, and I'm thinking back to, it came after the book was already coming out, but Late Night with the Devil. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's so it's type of it was kind of like the showing how talk shows can be completely off the rails. So I think, kind of going back to the heyday of the 70s, 80s, and 90s talk shows, just to say, here, why do people go on it and what do they want to hear? They want to feel better about whatever's going on with their lives, no matter how screwed up it is. Of course, in this case, nobody was sleeping with their brother or cousins or chipmunks or anything else like that, but it was just as nuts.
Yeah. And who knows? Maybe that's just something some people are okay with and you can't really fault them for it. Like, have you ever seen that movie, The Life of Pi?
Yes. Yeah.
Wasn't that kind of the whole conclusion they come to at the end? He's like, it's been so long since I've seen it, but I
Yeah.
mean, he tells this whole story that was actually like, I think ended up with the death of was it his mother, his parents?
I forget. It's been a long time.
Just some
Yeah.
horrific story that had two ways of being told, like this
Hmm.
lofty spiritual way or this realistic, gritty, horrific way. And I just remember the last line of that movie being, "So it is with God." Like, which do you prefer to believe? I
Hmm.
suppose was the point of that. I don't know. Listeners
Yeah.
at home, type something in the chat if if you can straighten me out. But yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy, and I like movies like that to kind of leave it up for debate, up for interpretation, and things like that. But again, I was definitely aiming for that here because I figured something as personal as this, especially with the afterlife and fanaticism and everything else like that. I want to not play both sides of it, but I want to really kind of like throw it up in the air and give some people this nice spiked softball to swing at or try to catch, and let them live with the consequences, whichever way they want. And I've heard from certain readers, uh, one thought one way and one thought the other way, and I say, okay. They say, which one of us is right? I was like, what do you think? And then they tell them what I intended. I was like, oh, okay. And then like, nobody was upset about it, but they want to. But again, even then, they wanted to be told what was the right way. And which again, I remember when I first read Shutter Island, which I love that book. And we actually got to meet Dennis Lehane in a bar in Florida,
oh
and we
wow.
were, we were yeah, it was Sleuth Fest where our terrible band was playing one year, and
You
and
always refer to it as a terrible band. I
I'm
don't
just
buy it.
joking. No,
Okay.
I'm just joking. Yeah, we have fun. I mean, hey, I mean, it was, okay. I've been playing guitar since I was 9. F. Paul Wilson on drums. You can't get bad with that. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's just fun. We always make fun of ourselves.
Oh yeah.
But we were sitting there one night, and we went up to Dennis Lane. And I said, "Okay, what does the end of Shutter Island mean?" He's like, "Buy me enough drinks, and I'll tell you." And we did. We bought him every drink we possibly could. And then he told us. I was like, I knew I was right, and it's really cool. But we were so fanatical just about that one book, which is really crazy that we needed to know what was in his mind. But he had like a crowd of people around him saying, just tell me what you thought. And, but again, he had to get hammered before he did. So I just think it was hysterical and a great way to get free drinks all night. But again, that's the type of thing where some people, I mean, even I want to know, just tell me what it is. I need to know. But again, sometimes that not knowing, it can really be, not traumatic, but it can be like really anxiety inducing because again, you really need to know, and you not to need to know, okay, is it right or is it wrong? Even if that answer is going to break you, you need to know.
Yeah. Well, there was a woman on the show named Cassie Lynn who did not have a story about pie in the sky and the sweet by and by. She instead said it was all bullshit and called the host a choice name. And because of this, she was summarily shut down by the priest before she had the chance to finish her explanation. So it's at this point in the story that you're really playing with the reader. I mean, you're making them think that maybe she was about to say death was pure hell or that there was nothing. And because Boone couldn't remember anything, that confirms that there's nothing after death. So it was almost as if, in a very meta way, you were toying with the particular readers that were hoping the story would confirm an afterlife. So was that your intention? And what sorts of different conclusions were you putting out there for the reader to kind of awkwardly grasp at?
I like that, awkwardly grasp it. That's a great phrase. But yeah, but again, I do like playing with the audience, but I like playing fair. I may toy with things, but I like to, like I tell my psychology students all the time, there's one thing I want to make you do. I want to make you think. And if I can make you think, my job's done. So it's not like I was trying to manipulate anybody. I just want to get the gears going, trying to get the hamster running on the wheel without catching his feet in the spokes. And that's what I was thinking. Wait a minute, what was she going to say? What was in hearing all the other BS answers from the other people? And poor Boone is in the middle, like, what the hell have I got myself into? But I think at that point, was it a bit of foreshadowing or was it just a dumb luck or something else? But I think that point when I was conjuring up that scene, I just I want to do something else. And then the scene kind of wrote itself that way. So again, we talked the last time about how I do plan things out, but I've learned as I've been growing as a writer that I like to give myself a roadmap and then set it on fire and then go the other way. And that's exactly what happened with
you need to develop a term for that, like as a narrative technique.
Yes, exactly. I need to find a really cool one. Yeah, writing on fire. Lighting your map on fire. But yeah, so yeah, should make a really really cheap writing self-help book on that. But again, I love to just kind of go with it, and I had it planned to go an entirely different way on the show, and then all of a sudden the priest showed up and things went awry and then everything else goes out the window. But again, I think that as soon as I got to the part where she was about to spill the beans, things got shut down. And I think, and it wasn't intentional, but originally I was going to have just an argument start or something else and just basically chaos of the audience. And then all of a sudden, my left turn happened. So again, I'd want to just kind of ratchet up some kind of suspense there about, what would she say? And then even if she was to spill some secrets about her life, good or bad, then it would kind of propel things forward. But again, and then lo and behold, my muse kicked me in the head and sent me the wrong way. So.
Who was the host? Like, what kind of vibes were you channeling with her? I couldn't quite nail it. I was like, not Barbara Walters.
No, it was honestly, okay. And this is the truth here. I was going for a cross between Ellen DeGeneres and Dr. Phil.
Oh, okay.
And it was
right. That would be a horrific baby.
Thank you. I'm gonna need therapy after that vision. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, because I figured I wanted somebody who, like, on the surface was going to just go for entertainment sake and just say, "Hey, let's have some fun. Let's just have like some great talks and then give away a car or something else like that." But then, obviously go just a touch deeper. And again, but that's so pseudoscience to come out and just kind of go with it. But yeah, I definitely had visions of her when I first started writing it, and then and then I saw his weird face and a mustache and his head and everything else, and I was like, oh my god, this is ugly. And then so yeah, I didn't have the formal melding of those images. I think because I don't think any therapist could have fixed that. But still, yeah, I think, but that was my original vision, to have her and then move into him. So, which is, yeah, it is kind of frightening. Yeah.
Well, how's that working out for you, David?
I don't know. When I get my next therapist bill, I'll let you know. I think I'll be paying that off until like then 2100. So yeah, it's crazy, but
Well, when it came to eluding the priest, there was a lot of action and intrigue that was very cinematic. Have you thought of producing a screenplay from this book or having it optioned? And if so, which actors would portray which characters?
it's funny because writers, generally do envision things, and I write cinematically just by necessity. I need to see what's happening in my head before I write it. I don't know how many other people can do that, but that's how my mind works. I see something happening and I put it down on paper. And in many of the things that happen in there, many of the scenes that happen in there, including running through the back halls of the mall, that's something I did as a teenager. So again, real life stuff, except nobody was coming at me with a gun. I had my landscaping boss running after me. But so I was thinking about it. I'm thinking age range or something else. And one person that kept on coming up on mine was Ryan Reynolds. I don't know why, but that came up. I think he's probably too old for it, but the guy looks like he's 25 half the time anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
like Van Wilder, Ryan
yeah,
Reynolds,
yeah,
that version.
yeah, sure, why not? But I don't know why. But it's not that it would be the best fit, but I think somewhere along those lines, kind of like your guy next door look, but also somebody who can also fit the whole rock musician realm as well. So again, it's hard to get that in the age range. And I think with Megan there are so many younger actresses I was thinking about that could fit. Trying to think the actress who was just who's making all sorts of waves now on Instagram and TikTok, who everybody's wants to see in bikinis and everything else. She was just in that movie Immaculate. I can't remember her name, but thinking about her in that aspect too.
Oh, so the character Megan was smoking hot. Is that what you're saying?
Sure, why not? Yeah,
Oh, okay.
absolutely. But again, that's kind of your dichotomy with the whole.
That's why Boone disregarded the religion. He was like, "Oh, I can make this work."
Now you figured it out, yes. But again, but that was purposeful because I figured again, I know several hyper religious people, and again, it's like. Yeah, they struggle with this whole thing. Can I be beautiful? Can I have that allure of sexuality and be be ultra religious as well? And that's something where I know certain people I've talked to have struggled with. They say, wait, can I be the smoking hot person and have this fun life and just wake up and go to church on Sundays and do everything else? So I figured I wanted to put that little weird juxtaposition into play there. So yeah. I'm trying to think of the last name. Your actress name is Sweeney or whatever. But again, she's all over everywhere now. Like basically, it's everybody's favorite thirst trap or whatever you want to call it now.
Mm. And the priest, did he have long dark hair?
Yes, he did. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I envision somebody. I just can't put a name on the actor.
Mm-hmm.
It'll dawn on me at like 2:00 in the morning. And I'll message you until you respond, till you wake up. No, I'm just playing.
No, go ahead. Please do. Because I hate when that happens to me too. And I get trying to think of an actor or an actress and I can't think of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have the image in my head right now. I can see the person in my head. I just can't remember the name. But again, it's somebody who's an attractive male, whatever, who wants to straddle that line of being a hyper religious guy and to also kind of having his world of earthly pleasures too. And again, just to kind of always like toss that wrench into the system there. But again, As for the screenplay thing, I've never written a screenplay, but most of my good writer friends have, and I've toyed with it. I've taken a class on it. I would love to do that. And just to see what's out there. And again, every time I turn around, one of my friends is calling me and say, "Hey, this was option, this was option, this was option." And I say, "How the hell do you do that?" They say, "I don't know." But again, that whole realm of writing and the whole business of there, it's yeah, I have no idea how to do that, but I'm looking into it. So we'll see. Crossing my fingers, hopefully.
Well, speaking of the priest and kind of what was going on in the background, there is one part where he ends up, let's just say, spending quality time with two young women. And one of them, he actually seemed like he caught feelings for in a way. And, went from this cold calculating machine to actually thinking about, oh, it'd be nice to take her to this beautiful place and be on the beach and stuff like that. So I know in the book you explain his backstory as him being recruited from a young child, I think as young as what, like 12, something like that? Yeah. So what was going on emotionally with that guy that's being pushed down every time it sprouts to the surface?
Well, I think with a lot of kids, I mean, especially at that age, psychologically, you're looking for acceptance, you're looking for identity. You want somebody to actually care for you. And I think he was not, from where he was recruited from. He just wanted to belong and be a part of something important. So now, once he actually got into his whole brotherhood, then he realized, okay, this is really cool. However, what am I giving up? I'm giving up a whole lifestyle. I can't do what my friends are doing. I can't do what my family's doing. What am I really doing here? So I think just again, the more you actually push down some desires, the more they're going to pop up. It's funny. We're just doing the id, ego, and superego in my psych class today, coincidentally.
Freud?
Yeah, it's the only thing for Freud that actually will teach. But because again, the rest of it's just utter bullshit. Yeah.
Do you have feelings for your mother?
Well, yeah, I did move to the South. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
But yeah, no, but it's like one of those things where, like, again, no matter how much you actually want to be something and you pretend to be something and you force yourself to be something, if you have something, some urges or some other wants or desires for life or for whatever else like that, we were also talking about defense mechanisms. The more you repress something, the more it's going to push out. And I was telling the class today how dangerous it is to repress emotions and repress desires instead of actually just dealing with them and finding out where they come from. So kind of with him, psychologically, it's like, okay, he wants the best of both worlds. He wants to pretend he's this uber religious guy, even though he obviously does some horrible things. And kind of like, okay, well, and even though he's saying, hey, I'm doing this all in the name of God, that's bullshit. I mean, again, just to come out with the hypocritical nature of many people in organized religion, like, if you can shoehorn any type of rationale into anything, if you try hard enough, we see it all across, news and some other things. And if you to flip through some channels today, I mean, hell, I drive through and I see some signs on the side of the road, and I say, shake my head. I was like, what the hell are you thinking? But I think for him, he just wants to find his purpose. And again, since he's now locked into that lifestyle, he's thinking, okay, I'm going to find my answer one way or the other. And again, his weaknesses are popping out everywhere. But I think, it's trying to think, what is my true purpose? And again, that's everybody's real, goal in life. They want to find out who they are and why they are. And again, he struggles with it. And again, especially since he never got a chance to have that proper childhood, have that teenager lifestyle or everything else. It's gonna, if again, you're gonna push it down, it's gonna rub somewhere. So again, I think that's why I came out with him.
Yeah, like whack-a-mole. Now you were talking about the id and the ego. So it's the id, the ego, and the superego, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So the id is your feeder breed based desires, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Which one is the ego? The regulatory? Which one regulates is your conscience basically?
Well, the ego is pretty much your decision maker. And it's like, okay, so for him, it's like, am I going to get caught or am I going to get away with it? That type of thing. Consequences. And the superego is kind of your morality play. So, I mean, basically it's just right or wrong. And we were talking today. we were talking today about how serial killers and other psychopaths, sociopaths don't really have a functioning superego. It's basically just id and ego. So again, what would stop a killer, or what would stop him? Would I get caught? Is this part of the mission or something else? And the superego pushed to the side there. Does he have one? Maybe, maybe not. But again, he never had a chance to fully develop that and see what happens there.
So if you brought that down to an organic biological level, would the id, the ego, and the superego be the reptilian brain, mammalian brain, and primate brain?
You do study psych. You're pretty much on target with everything.
Well, is that right? Yeah, I mean, I'm an amateur.
No. Pretty much that's right on target. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's the simplified version of it, but I mean, for your statement there, it was great. I mean, because again, I might use that tomorrow when I teach my other classes, because I was trying to. Because again, I was explaining the reptilian brain with them for id, but I didn't go into the other parts. But again, I think I might use that one tomorrow if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't. So, I don't own that. I don't know where I got it.
No, I mean, I'm always looking for something to simplify, the critical psychological, terms and concepts into something that everybody can understand. And I think that, I mean, we did it with the whole devil on one side, angel on the other side. And they say, well, who's in the middle? It's like, that's the judge. You're basically saying, kind of like the referee is saying, yes, no, like there's a flag for illegal touching, things like that.
Yeah. Listeners at home, I apologize for belaboring this point, but it is the Dark Mind podcast, the unconscious mind. So you were talking about repressing things, kind of like the shadow self.
Mm-hmm.
If you suppress the shadow self, are you more of a Freud or a Jung proponent?
Definitely Jung, and it's funny you mentioned that up, because we actually started.
No mother stuff with Jung.
No. He went to the other side, and we just started a conversation about archetypes today. So we'll get more into that later on in the semester. But yeah. But even though I'm born on Freud's birthday, true story. But again, I'm much more of a Jung guy, and I love his collective unconscious and some of his archetypes and how much he inspired, like pretty much storytelling and the Star Wars and Marvel world and everything else like that all together. So yeah, I'm much more in his realm, probably because he didn't want to sleep with any of his family. So
that's always a plus.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. While being pursued by the priest in a forest, Boone has a transcendent vision, almost like he took ayahuasca or something like that. And he's not quite sure what to make of it. He believes it to be memories of his time on the other side, but isn't sure, and isn't even really sure if it's a pleasant experience. So what elements at that time caused him to slip into that altered state of consciousness? And I think you can explain that without giving away spoilers, but I may have made a tragic misstep there.
Oh, no. You actually, you straddled that line perfectly.
Okay.
No, I think trauma is a tricky beast. I mean, again, I've gone through some traumatic experience, and most of us have. And I think that when I said before about how Megan was trying to trigger his memories and things like that, and again, you have to have the right triggers. And I think what happens there in the forest, that is such a massive, I mean, we're talking about a mother of all triggers for him. That pretty much like opens the floodgates in some way. And kind of whatever he is holding back, subconsciously, it just comes roaring back in. And again, trying to figure out, hey, is this real, or is this my mind just kind of like snapping into a million pieces? And I think I needed that to kind of play fair with the readers and say, okay, you've been waiting with me for all this time. Let me give you an inkling into what's actually happening in reality. And as I've heard from some people, it's like, yes, that was a major point that I needed to read and to understand. This is a key revelation here, and that's what I want to be. I want to say, okay, let's pull back the curtains a little bit and to show what actually was happening to his mind, whether it's psychological or supernatural. One of those things to kind of just to give kind of like a quick flash. Since kind of like the guys in the park walking through with, hey, ladies, here you go. Same thing there. I just wanted to go with it and say, there you go. You see what's going on, and now we'll go back to the thriller part of it.
So you're saying trauma repressed, but then it also triggered?
Yeah. Trauma, again, for too much information on my side, but I've been through some near some near violent things in schools. I mean, I don't want to go into too much because that's bad for me too. But again, I had some traumatic things where like, pretty much I almost lost my life there again. And so whenever this comes back out, I can repress everything. And then unfortunately, it's the next thing that pops up, the next thing that pops up. And all of a sudden that just like breaks down the dam and everything goes flooding back to me. So all these things I've repressed for years come back, and then it takes a while for that wave to retreat. So I think for something like this, negative trauma can be triggered any possible time. And certain things you're never going to get back. Certain things that trauma will hide forever. And again, but in this case, I want to basically say, here, this is the one that poked the hole in the bag where everything could just come bleeding out.
So with your psychology background, so something that's real that's been documented was the CIA's MK Ultra project, where they were using hallucinogens. But then something that's kind of like an urban legend that's never been confirmed, just rumors, is I think they call it Project Monarch. And that's the one where they say that they were using, I don't know who, if it's the government or they claim some other organization, is using trauma to embed commands. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've heard of. I don't know too much about that one, but
I was just curious to know. Like, I doubt it. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's true. I think a lot of stuff is BS, and then they're like, Epstein Island. Oh, really? Oh my God.
Yeah.
But like, would that theoretically be possible? Could you embed commands by subjecting them to trauma, to where the command is fed and then repressed because they don't want to deal with the severe trauma, but then at the same time triggered with different trauma for the command to be carried out? Would that theoretically work as far as your...
Absolutely. Classical conditioning is a key thing there, or operant conditioning. I remember some of the studies we have, like when there's a little Albert's experiment, when this little baby from back in the 30s, I believe, they wanted to make him afraid of dogs and other animals, and then eventually Santa Claus, and traumatize the shit out of this little kid. So basically, later on, they can make him afraid of anything, and then later on, they want to cure him of things, but again, he was stuck with forever. And also with the Milgram experiment and Stanford prison experiment, where they traumatized everybody to do this as well. Back in a weird class I took called Witches, Shamans, and Magic in college, the most popular class on campus, the woman who was teaching us were showing us military clips of psi experiments, like remote viewing, other things like that, and trying to bring out some psychic phenomena with people. And again, what were they doing to trigger this was trauma. And they were showing people most horrific images just to, in what we learned from her, I don't know how much of it is true or not, because again, military, again, great stuff. However, it's still shrouded in some secrecy. That strong events can be a strong trigger. Again, for certain people who are doing the remote viewing or some other psi experiments, that the strong trigger like that can produce some wild things. And again, it's almost like a shock to the brain. So instead of electrical shock, you can have a trauma shock, and that can open up new neural pathways to hopefully get to what they want. But I'm sure it screwed up way too many people, on the way.
Yeah, you talk about remote viewing. I had Dean Radin on the show, and he worked on Project Stargate. I was like,
wow,
please tell me the classified information.
Yes, oh my God, it must have been fascinating.
Yeah, he's like, nope, can't do it.
Damn
it.
Yeah.
Well, without giving away anything about the Brotherhood or anything about the ending, what has been the most common reaction to the story's ending from your ARC readers and reviewers?
People have pretty much just said, do you really believe that? I mean, do you really believe that the afterlife exists? Do you really believe the afterlife? Or why do you believe this? I mean, what traumatized you to actually make that kind of assumption, left or right? And Again, it wasn't been a negative thing. It's been more like, again, readers sometimes, not sometimes, but many times, tie the writer into the story. That say, even though they say, "Hey, he played guitar, it must be you," or "He's a teacher, it must be you," or even though he's a music teacher, which I have no skill in doing. Um, they want to draw some parallels that make sense to them. They want to connect the dots, and I think uh, their only way of making sense of what I wrote about, especially the ending, is how much of this do you believe? How much of this stuff is you? How much of this stuff is there? And they will come at me. Even my own mom came at me. She's like, so you really believe this stuff? Like, not as accusational, but just like kind of like, you must believe this stuff. And then I explained to what I really thought about it. And she's like, oh, okay. That's cool. And, she swung to the ultra religious side in recent years. So, kind of interesting that people would come at it in different aspects, and just to really think. Some people come out and they say, "Wait a minute, what actually happens at the end, or that last act there?" They said, "Wait a minute, do you actually come up with this yourself, or how much of that is real?" And when I tell them how much of it is real, they're like, "Holy shit! Wait a minute, that can't be true." Now, not the true, finale, but all things leading up to it. Do they really have a place like that, in the setting? I was like, absolutely. And then so people are wrestling with it, because again, you're messing with people's upbringings, you're messing with people's trainings. Some people are really brainwashed by this stuff, and some people who are really religious are really open minded. So it's kind of walking a tightrope. Again, we said before, people want to be comforted. They don't want to be put on edge. They don't want to have their beliefs and their faith challenged. But again, some of the best people I've worked with in religion and everything else, they love to kind of push the envelope and really want to see. They want to be tested. They want to see what's going on. And some people fall out of their faith. Some people go stronger into it. So I just want to say, what happens when I push? Because again, I love pushing people's buttons, which is obvious. But I think the more I pushed, the more people came to their own conclusions, and thereby their own kind of peace with the ending. So one way or the other, whichever one they wanted to, they kind of reverted back to their own belongings, their own beliefs. No matter how much I tried to sway them, they kind of went back to where they were.
Gotcha. Well, it was an absolute roller coaster ride. Great book. Listeners at home, buy it, read it at your own peril, and review it.
Yes. Yeah. And for those, I'm actually giving away to two lucky winners their own near-death experience. So you just have to come over. I'll do it for you. So you're fine.
I was like, wait a minute. What is this? Is he being serious?
Kidding.
And like, I will have the car on when you get here. It'll be in the garage. No.
Yeah. I'll just push you over an icy cliff. We're fine. But this was, it was a true pleasure to write this, even though I spent way too much time changing things around. But I love when stories tell me what to do instead of me telling the story what to do. And this thing definitely wrote itself, and I just kind of sat back and let it go.
Well, when does it come out?
It came out last month. It
came out last month. Okay.
Yeah.
I must be confusing it with a different one.
Oh, no,
okay.
It's fine. Yeah. This is, no, it's exciting. It was my first pre-order from Crossroads. So I was like, actually got to build up some hype for it. So we'll see if that translates into excitement for it. But I've been hearing lots of cool things from it. And again, to getting some of the excitement from some of my favorite writers is made me feel like a kid on Christmas Day. So if I can get them excited, then hopefully it'll translate to other readers.
Well, tell me about the release party you had at, what is this called? The book Dragon Shop.
Yes. That is my favorite independent bookstore. It's one of the best independent bookstores in the country, actually named that by Best Thrillers, their website there. Great picture. Yeah. Of course, I'm pictured by the kids section, which is really not cool. But
did you scare the children?
Thankfully there was only one kid that came in. It was mine, so it was okay. I'm allowed to traumatize him.
Gotcha.
And that owner is amazing. Again, she's been heralded by several thrill writers as like one of the few champions of this type of book. So she treats me well. So having that time in there to actually just kind of discuss all these topics, everything else was amazing. And having several former students come in, parents of former students, and here they are. Like, let's talk about near the experience. Let's talk about the afterlife, everything else. And all those things in there, just to really kind of go deep with people and have that conversation was phenomenal. And so, I mean, I'm in the midst of setting up about right now. I have 7 different events coming up, anywhere from a Fright Reads Con to a brewery, which is really cool. I mean, speaking about near-death experiences, why not speak at a brewery for that? But it's just to set up all these things.
Get on the road intoxicated. No,
yeah, yes, they were not They were not drinking when they actually had their accident. That's one thing. But again, it's just to. I mean, I love having bookstores that actually kind of really kind of champion the up and coming writers or people who really need the audience. And Sandy from that books for the Book Dragon is amazing person, amazing owner. So really likes to help out every single person she possibly can. So I'm thankful for her.
Well, Pierce the Veil seemed like it must have been a hell of an undertaking. What was your writing schedule like?
Honestly, my whole schedule, my whole life is chaotic. I think I did most of my writing at night for this because, again, I'm a night owl. I don't know. All these years of being a teacher, I'll never get used to wake up in the morning. I would write either down here in my cave, out on the porch, which overlooks the mountains, or I think the night owl in me and the magic of the nighttime just kind of drew me in. And whenever I tried to write during the daytime, the same vibe just wasn't happening. So again, I'd say probably 90% of it was done through the colors of moonlight coming in through the windows, or from being down here and just watching whatever creatures would come up to my window, and just kind of really setting the tone to go with. And I think that also kind of let my own psyche kind of relax a little bit. So again, like I said in the previous interview, I like to map things out. And this time, again, it was like watching that map go on fire and then say, here, we're going to go this way. And I think that's something where I learned to kind of really let myself go. And with the 2 subsequent novels I've written and now Shopping, are completely just kind of like, let's just roll with it and see what happens. So I think that whole power of the night just kind of fueled the whole story and the mindset and all the unknown beauty and horrors of this book just kind of bled through. And again, just by leaning into my comfort zone, which is the nighttime.
Gotcha. Well, before we started recording, you mentioned something about having a new project in the works.
Oh, yeah. Well, one I just finished. I just have to edit it. I'm writing a new story for Elizabeth Massey's Mariscare series, which is pretty much Goosebumps, but with history. So I just tackled Alaska for that. And the one I'm shopping to agents right now is about a married couple who are both serial killers.
Yes.
Yeah. So I figured, hey, you know what? Why not? It started out tongue in cheek, and I was like, holy shit, I love this. So I figured echoes of Dexter, Killing Eve, and a couple other things put together. I started writing it as a joke, and all of a sudden, like, wow, I love this. And then, so that book pretty much wrote itself, and hopefully, publishers will like it as much as I did. So,
well, you spoke about Dennis Lehane earlier. In our first interview, you said you lived down the road from John Grisham's ranch, but you had never met him. Have you met him yet?
No, I have not.
When are you going to scale the wall?
I would love to, because again, he is, I mean, it's not down the road from me, but right down the road from my school, which is really cool, because I have had so many students who come in and say, here, guess who I met yesterday? I was like, shit, why did you get to meet him? And then also David Baldacci's around there too. And so it's like, like Virginia is a hotbed of cool writers. But again, once I find out how to get in there, I will. Because one of my ex-college students, she actually worked on his horses. So again, all these little degrees of separation from there are kind of cool. So I'll get there. I'll just have him believing that he needs to write like another version of Firm just to keep me out of there, or just do away with me altogether. So.
Well, I looked it up. And the last time you were on the show was just over a year ago, like maybe a year and a month, year and 2 months, something like that. So you came on today with a banger of a novel. What do you hope to have accomplished this time next year?
This time I would love to have a pretty lucrative book deal, or I mean, not so much in money because money's great, but everything else, but just to really kind of have like the setup that I need to really get the book into readers' hands all across the world. So I would love for that to happen. And honestly, I mean, when you mentioned before the screenplays and options, yeah, every writer dreams of having their book, optioned and turned into a film. I get asked at least once a week, when is Fear the Reaper going to be on a film? And I say, I wish I knew, if anything. But I'd love to see that or this one get optioned for something, because just to see what would happen, even if they butchered it, I would love to just see something of mine come to life on a screen, whether it's small screen, big screen, I don't care. But then just to have that, bucket list item checked off. But again, none of us do it for the riches. I mean, and I like to say, joking about that, but riches would be nice. But again, I just want to have my books in as many hands as possible. And again, if they can be done by putting it on a big screen, so be it. And I just want people to enjoy my stories and go with it. So again, book, movie, pop-up book, cartoon, I don't care. I just want to see it happen, and hopefully just bother as many people as I can with my stories.
Nice. Well, I and listeners at home, we all send the vibes that way. We speak it into existence.
I'll sing everything. I'll sacrifice somebody later to hopefully make sure it manifests. So
yeah. Just don't mention that to anybody.
No, not at all. I mentioned what I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'll edit this part out. It'll be fine. Just have to worry about the live viewers. I can track down where they are. We can,
that's fine. Yeah, I can help with that. Yeah, I know. I'm from Jersey. I know plenty of people in low places.
Oh so. Yeah, snap. All right. Well, David, it has been a pleasure talking with you.
And it's been a pleasure too. And I thank you so much for having me on again. It's always an honor to be on here, especially because you have the best people on all around the globe. And again, I consider myself to be highly honored and very lucky to be on the show. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. Well, as we bring the show to a close, is there anything you'd like to plug or let your readers know about?
Actually, there's one thing. It's not book related because, again, I'm not about me altogether. Stanton, Virginia, one of the best small towns in America, not by me, but by magazines. We're having our official first book festival next month on October 19th. So if anybody's in the area of DC, Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia, Ohio, anything else like that, please come. Again, we have like 60 authors from all over the place coming in, and we really want to just kind of promote literacy and just kind of get books in the hands of anywhere from kids to adults, all genres possible. And I've been lucky enough to plan it with the owner of the Book Dragon and a couple other lucky people. Again, so that's one thing we really want to get out there, is like just kind of put our own stamp on the book festival, and just with no real bells and whistles. We just want to, just help people read and make it easier for them to get books in their hands.
All right. Sounds good. Well, definitely do stick around after we get off the recording here. Thank you to all the live listeners that joined us, and everybody collectively, listeners at home. All links are in the description. And David, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can watch the episodes live. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a new episode featuring the best and brightest writers and filmmakers of dark literature and film. So until then, stay healthy, stay sane, and as always, thank you for listening. See you next time.